Hey everyone, before we get started with episode 41 of FEcast, the cards you need to know from Awakening, just a couple quick plugs. First off, a huge shout out to SRFest, who is taking over the editing duties of FEcast. I think that is going to do a lot for making the production of FEcast more smoothly and us being able to get it out on time every week. And thank you so much to them in playing a really important role for the podcast. Another thing, if you're not already a part of the Friends of Eternal Discord, it is the best place on the internet to get better at Eternal. We have so many great players in the Discord that just talk about the game every day and basically every aspect of it, from Gauntlet to various constructed formats to limited formats. Finally, a huge shout out to our patrons at patreon.com. FEcast would not be possible without them, so thank you so much to Cotillion, Ryder, Alcide Bava, Sigma Tank, Work Done Son, Chamomilk, Chrissier, Yeastout, and D-Dub for their continued support of the show. If you would like to help support FEcast and be like these lovely people, head on over to patreon.com/Friends of Eternal. All right, without any further ado, here is Stormblessed and myself talking about every card in the Awakening campaign with FEcast episode 41, the cards you need to know from Awakening. Hello everyone and welcome to FEcast episode 41. Today we're going to be taking a look at the cards from the new Awakening campaign releasing Tuesday, September 1st. It is currently Friday, August 28th, and the cards just got dropped in client, so we're going to get a good look at all 21 cards. Along with me to talk about these is, of course, my co-host Stormblessed. How are you doing?
I am doing very well. I am very excited for this little bundle. It's only 21 cards, but there's a lot of really interesting cards here that I think will have some fun deck building interactions, and I think I'm excited to brew up some new decks.
Absolutely. I'm also just excited to play another campaign. I always have fun with them, except for like when there's a really hard battle and that forces you to use a certain deck. It's just so much more fun when we get to build our own decks for these.
I'm pretty sure that they're gonna. I don't know. Maybe they'll take it. Maybe they'll take the feedback, but I think they're gonna keep with the pre-constructed decks. And I actually do like the pre-constructed decks. I mean, yes, there was some wonkiness to them, and I think they could have been finer tuned in some aspects. But I actually kind of liked it. I liked the flavor of playing with like Cameron's deck when I'm playing as Cameron in like Homecoming.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think there
okay.
was I think there were some overtuned fights like the original like Dragon Egg fight in like what was it like the Champions, I think it was. I don't know, but like the original like Dragon Egg thing was like really obnoxious, but overall I like them.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. It just feels like some of the decks just feel like draft decks in a constructed setting, and it's kind of frustrating as far as power levels go. But yeah, I definitely appreciate building around the story. That is something that I really enjoy. That's why I play like fantasy games. Is because being transported into another setting, I think, is a lot of fun. Something that brings me to a quick aside. Something that I really miss from Eternal is that the cards don't have like flavor text, random quotes or like random descriptions. I think that would go a long way.
I mean, they do have a couple things. Makto's revenge never ends. There's a couple in card on card text, right? That sort of says flavor as well.
I guess so. All right. Enough banter. Let's get on to these cards. We're going to be going through them in the order that they're presented in the client. So we're starting with Fire and we're going to end up with a faction list. But we're just going to be doing them in order in the client and we'll be reading every single card. So first we have Clodag Ascending. It's a 2-cost Fire 3/1. It's part of the Ascending unit cycle that have, there are 2 drops that have double influence requirement, and then they have new abilities when you have 4, 6, and 8 of 1 influence. So Clodag is the Fire one. It has the ability when it has 4 fire, when Clodag attacks, Plunder, 6 fire, +2/+2 in quick draw, and then 8 fire. When you play a treasure trove, your units get +1 attack. How do you feel about Clodag?
I Okay, so my first read the card, I wasn't that excited, but then I read it again, and I got a little more excited because if you're your real goal with these, if you're playing these, is you obviously want to get them online as soon as possible, but you really are probably looking more towards the second ability than the third ability in that sense, right? Because you're probably not going to get to 8 outside of, I don't know, like a super ramp deck or a control deck. Maybe like the primal one in the we'll discuss that one later. But like Clodagh especially seems like you're trying to get the 6 fire for this, and if you do, it becomes a 5/3 quick draw that when it attacks plunders, which is pretty beefy for a 2 drop. But the reason that I'm somewhat skeptical about it is that it has just a very low health, right? Even when you have 6 fire, like you invest all this time and effort into building your deck around getting so much fire influence that you have a 3 health unit that dies to the same things as your other 3 health units. So plundering is a very powerful ability, so I like that aspect of it. I think it's possible that maybe this card's looking just towards that first ability, even than the second ability, that you're only looking to get 4 fire. The other issue with Clodagh, in my opinion, is that if you're playing a mono fire deck, or maybe this is not for mono fire, but if you're playing mono fire, you want to be playing things like Seal of Devotion or the new power that's been spoiled in this set. And if you do that, it really hurts your chances of turning on Clodagh. So I'm a little skeptical of this card.
Yeah, me too. And that is very hypocritical coming from someone who, won a throne tournament with Yeti Cookmaster in the deck because it's a 2-cost fire unit that attacks for 3. But it definitely has its shortcomings. First of all, I don't think that the ability to plunder when you have quad fire is that good. Like, yeah, occasionally you're going to draw a card from your excess power, but like usually in these mono fire decks, you end up using all of your cards anyway. You just manage to find ways of using them, whether it's discarding to Jack, going to the market, or your powers have various effects like being fire emblems or being the Waystone. So you don't really have that much extra nonsense to plunder away in the late game. So I don't think that ability is great. The fact that it can be a 5/3 quick draw is fantastic, and that last ability is like basically flavor text. I have a hard time imagining a deck that gets 8 fire and is going wide and then just getting +1 attack. It just doesn't seem very
Yeah.
strong. But geez, it just doesn't seem as powerful as some of these other cards from the same ascending cycle. But man, I'd be a real hypocrite if I said that I don't think this is going to see play in mono fire decks because it seems like something that could.
So I think if the first ability was if they didn't have cycle symmetry and the first ability was like or if he didn't even have it, which is when it attacks it plunders, I think I'd like the card a lot more. If you didn't have to have a condition on it, I think that in a mono fire deck, Yeti Cookmaster is just better than this card most of the time. Um,
That's actually probably true. I mean, to be honest, that's when
like
you're rating fire 2-drops, rating them against Yeti Cookmaster seems like not a bad baseline for is this card good? And honestly, Yeti Cookmaster I think is a little better.
like Yeti Cookmaster is always a 3 when it attacks sometimes, and it also has 5 power when it attacks. It dies to basically the same thing as Clodagh dies to, and it also means that if you have like a Seal of Devotion on your top of your deck on turn 1 or 2, you can still play Yeti Cookmaster. You can't do that with Clodagh, so
Yeah.
not impressed by Clodagh. Okay, moving on to the next fire card spoiled. It's a 2 and a fire for a relic. I think it might be the only relic in the set, actually. And it is Reactor Forge. At the start of your turn, get +1 power. Then increase this ability by 1. At the end of your turn, take 1 damage for each power Reactor Forge gave you this turn. What do you think of Reactor Forge?
Boy, this has the potential to be broken. I mean, you can get a lot of power really fast. So if you play Reactor Forge on turn 2, and then you play something like an Eternity Core on turn 3, you get 4 + 2 + 3. That's 9 power on turn 4? Am I counting that right? Obviously, it comes with the downside of dealing damage to you, so you do have to figure out a way to end the game, but I think this has a lot of potential, especially alongside Great Kiln Titan. It's a card that's been around for a while. It's an 8-cost Sentinel. It's a 9/7. And it says whenever you play a relic, deal damage equal to its cost to an enemy. Then your turn, play the top card of your deck. That gives you a way to close out the game, get some card advantage, and deploy a huge threat. That would be something that is really powerful on turn 4. And if it's not dealt with in short order, it will close out the game. So I mean, I think it's a really powerful card. You just really have to figure out a way in order to take advantage of that extra power quickly.
Yeah, this card is really interesting. So Unlike like Ixtal's pendant, which just does actual nothing if you're not using it. Um, the big like this card on the first turn that it's active, it already is a power stone, right? You don't have to wait for it to ramp up like 6 turns later for it to do something, right? It starts as a power stone, then after it becomes a Carnity Core, etc., etc. The downside is, of course, that if you let this be active for 5 turns and don't win the game, you've suddenly taken 15 damage. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 is 15. And that's actually a lot of damage. So you need to find some way to gain life or end the game quickly through proactive threats. For example, you play like Reactor Forge, next turn, play like, a Cat or a Sandstorm Titan, the turn after, play like Grodov Stranger, and then, maybe as your top end, you play like a Talir combo. Like Grodov Stranger seems like it's really good with this card, for instance, right? You ramp to it, helps you ramp further. If you don't draw Reactor Forge, you're still a threat, and also still ramps you to your other late game threats that Reactor Forge wants you to go with. So I like this card in practice a fair bit. I don't see it many other places. Maybe I guess if there's like some sort of weird life gain shadow deck, if you give yourself life steal, then Reactor Forge won't kill you that turn.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head what the best cards for just gaining a ton of life are, but I mean, it is possible that you just figure out ways of gaining enough life to offset the damage turn after turn. But I think the level 0 of figuring out how this card is going to work is to ramp into big power plays in some sort of praxis deck.
Yeah. The level 0 is clearly some sort of practice deck. Although I assume there'll be some sort of weird isomorphic, I'm going to win the game on turn 5, kill you kind of deck.
Yeah, so really excited about Reactor Forge. The next card is Defective Flamebot. It's a 4-cost double fire 4/4, has decay. When a spell is played directly on Defective Flamebot, it deals 3 damage to enemy player. I think that this card, it's okay, but I just don't think it can break through. Like, maybe it has a place in Expedition somehow, but man, it dies to Jack. It just isn't as big as things like Sandstorm Titan or Vara, even if it does have decay, which, the damage ends up mattering. It also competes with cards like Wasteland Broker. I just don't think it does enough.
I'm gonna disagree slightly. I think it might actually have a place. Dying to Jack though is very unfortunate because it doesn't deal damage to any player. One thing I'll note that I just thought of actually literally just now is that because it has decay, when it deals the damage to the enemy player, it does stop relic weapons. So like they like a backbreaker, make the backbreaker a 2 attack weapon. That's a lot easier to deal with, but that's very minor. But it is a neat interaction. The reason I think that it could potentially see some play is in like a Rakano deck. We do have a nerfed Silverblade Intrusion and Friends in Low Places, but those are still possibly powerful cards, and they are spells that target things, right? So if you can get extra value out of those cards, that might help make them more playable again, right? If your Silverblade Intrusion or Friends in Low Places also deals 3 to any player, that's pretty good, especially with future cards that we are going to look at in a bit. I think this might have a place if Rakano makes a comeback, but I'd give it like a 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5 situation.
Yeah, I actually didn't realize that was whenever a spell from either player is played on it. So, yeah, that makes it a little more interesting. Although 4-cost 4/4s usually aren't what you want out of those decks.
No, but I mean, I think if you're playing like Silver Intrusion and Friends in Low Places now, you're kind of being more mid-rangey than aggressive at that point because they just require so much now. They require so much more than they used to that you kind of have to go a little bit longer. But I think this card might actually have a chance.
Next up, we have Coronation Ritual. This is part of another cycle with pretty crazy influence requirements. Coronation Ritual is a 5-cost triple fire card. It's a fast spell. Sacrifice a unit to play 2 incarnations with attack and health equal to its attack. 5 times, they get plus attack and health equal to the sacrificed unit's health. And 5 justice, they get its battle skills. So I think what's a good example for this? Let's say you've got a patroller, right? A Flameheart patroller, the 1/3 surge plus 2 attack. You play your seat or whatever on turn 5, and somehow you have the influence. Well, let's say you don't have the influence for it. Say you just sacrifice the Flameheart patroller. All of a sudden, you have 2 5/5s, not 5/3s, 5/5s. If you happen to have the time part turned on, they become what 8/8s. And if you have the justice part, they get battle skills, which don't apply in this situation. What do you think of Coronation Ritual? Definitely a lot's going on in this card.
Oh, this card is very hard to evaluate, but there's a lot I want to say about this card. But first, I would say that this card is part of a cycle of 5 cost spells that are 3 of one faction, in this case Triple Fire, that have 2 extra modes. That if you have 5 of an off faction influence, you get an extra mode, and if you have both 5s, you get a secondary mode. So if you had 5 fire, 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 5 time, and 5 justice, you'd get all 3 of these effects. And then all the spells work like this in the cycle, and they're all interesting to evaluate. So I think the main thing to think about is that for the most part, you should really only look at these as being in a 2-faction deck that just does 2 different things in a 2 different decks, right? So you can look at either a Praxis card or a Recano card, or I guess a Mono Fire card if need be. But you probably aren't going to be getting both the justice effects and the time effects. So don't really try to push that, because I don't know if you remember the FJS days of old, but even those days, it was not easy to make 3, 5, and 5, and that was like a long game FJS. Like you couldn't reliably hit that, right? You would get there sometimes, but you can't consistently do it. Whereas you can maybe get to 3 and 5.
Yeah, you would sometimes miss on Triple Fire, Triple Justice for Ikaria, and that's on 7 power, and that's only triple of 2 different factions. Granted, we have better tools now, but even so, I think, imagining all these cards with all of their modes turned on is very ambitious.
Unless the card is like you win the game, don't probably shouldn't play for that mode. But anyway, so as for this specific card, the thing that I think makes it on the realm of from unplayable to interesting, because it is really hard to evaluate, is that it is a fast spell. Sunday's scenario, I think, is not the greatest scenario, because I want to be able to hold it to my opponent's turn. Right? If I'm playing Flameheart Patroller, I can't reliably surge on my opponent's turn to make this useful. But that you can, like, in response to a kill spell, or at the end of their turn, produce 2 really huge threats, I think is interesting. I honestly have no idea what to think about this card. I guess maybe like this card with Reactor Forge in a Praxis deck. No, wait, no, that's terrible, because Reactor Forge doesn't give you influence. Yeah, I think this card's hard to evaluate. My instinct says that this card is bad, but it's hard to evaluate.
Yeah, I think this card's bad. I mean, that's my opinion on it.
I think you're probably going to want to play this for the time mode rather than the justice mode, because, say, for instance, sacrificing a Sandstorm Titan and getting 2 11/11 sounds better than, say, sacrificing, a Sandstorm Titan in justice and getting 2 5/5s with endurance.
I actually disagree. I think that if you were going to play it, you'd want to pair it with charge units in Justice so that you can sacrifice it and then play it. But even then, it's like it requires a lot of setup, and you're basically just playing 1 extra unit. Unless you're responding to a kill spell, and it's incredibly difficult to hold 5 power up for like multiple turns. Like, what are you going to do? You're like, if they don't use the kill spell on your card, are you just going to play it anyway? So then you have a big ambush unit, or
it's nice that the card isn't like a 2-for-1 in that sense, because you're sacrificing 1 unit to get 2 units, but it is a lot of investment. Like, even in like the example of Sandstorm Titan, which I think it's a bit better in Praxis than in Justice, like, easily, because I think like 2 11/11s is, I mean, there's not that many good charge units that are gonna just like die immediately. Like when you sacrifice like Milo sacrificed like Galai for 2 4/4s with charge for 5. I think that making 2 11/11s is better. Also, do we know what an incarnation is? Do you know if it's mono faction, if it's multi faction, what cost it is?
No, I don't.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, it's also like endurance is not that exciting of a battle skill. Anyway, it just seems like you have to have too much going on, like too much of a setup where you could just be playing something like, Arboreal Grazer or something like that. Sorry, is Arboreal? It's not. It's Gentle Grazer. I'm thinking of the Magic
Gentle
card.
Grazer.
Too many Grazers, too many slots.
If the card had like no influence requirements, it was just like 5 fire, like 5 fire time, I think the card would actually probably be very good. But it's also like a lot of setup for like not that much payoff.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next one. This is Alhed Ascending, another card from the Ascending cycle. This is the time one, costs 2 and is double time. It's a 3/3, and Alhed Ascending's abilities are 4 time. Your attacking units have decay, 6 time +2/+2 and overwhelm, 8 time when you play another unit, Alhed gets that unit's attack and health. What do you think about Alhed?
I love this card. I mean, I'm also biased because I used to play a bunch of Teacher of Humility and I played a bunch of Zenith mid range and I love mid range decks. But I think this card is way better than Glodoff for a number of reasons. The first is that time already went heavy time. You know, you have better payoffs in a sense. You have Ubstot, and you're not really looking for aggressive Seal of Devotion style value trains. I think that also its second mode of getting to 6 time and making this a 5/5 overwhelm is better than making a 5/3 quick draw because, you know, it doesn't die to Seer, for instance. I think that the first ability is also pretty reliably going to be better than Clodaw's ability. I think your attacking units get decay is going to be better than when Clodaw attacks get plunder. For a number of reasons. One is that you don't actually have to attack with all head if you don't if it's like a really bad attack, whatever, then you don't have to attack with all head, and that's fine. But also, like, it makes all of your small units kind of train to their beginners a little bit, right? Because, you know, decay means that even if you don't get the trade off, you still get a small trade off. You don't like kill it completely, but you get to shrink it, which is, I think, going to be pretty useful. So I think, and then of course, if you get to the final stage, it's very, very powerful, but you can't really play for that one. So I think that this card's very good. And if it sticks around, if you get to 8, it'll be even better. So, I mean, because like then it'll be like what? If you play like on turn 8 or whatever, play like all head into Grodoff Stranger, and then you get like an 11/11 overwhelm. Because remember, when it gets that +X+X, it already has overwhelm still. So
Yeah, that damage is definitely hitting your opponent unless they have something like a Defiance or some way of killing it that doesn't check for its stats. Yeah, I think Alhead is probably going to see a significant amount of play. I think this is one of the safest bets in the set. At its base case, it's a 2-cost 3/3, and we know that Stone Scar has been playing a 2-cost 3/3 since forever. But this one has more abilities, and I think they're more relevant than the pings that Argenport Instigator makes. So you mentioned you don't have to attack with it when you have a bad attack. When your units have decay, there aren't really bad attacks. I mean, you still trade where you trade, but like also you just shrink something to the point where its blocks are no longer as good.
In the case of all head specifically, you know, say you're at like 5 time, right, and you're like next turn you play the 6th time, and you know you want to get that overwhelm +2/+2, right? Then you don't attack that turn. You know, you wait the one turn.
Yeah.
Was my thinking.
Yeah, I think the +2/+2 and overwhelm is pretty self-explanatory, but the last one, and I don't think of all the factions, I think time is most likely to get these influence pips, right? Time is the best at getting additional power and additional influence.
Well, actually, justice is actually the easiest one.
I guess Shadow also has ways of getting extra influence now with this. So Sao, I think it's Sao.
Yeah, but Prize So is not that playable. So
okay, sure. Anyway, that basically gives all your units charge. Think of it in something like an Obelisk deck. You have an Alhead in play and you have the 8 time and you draw like a Grenadin drone. That's giving Alhead +6/+6, assuming you have 8 power. So I think this is going to be great for token strategies, if not like monotime.
how does it give all head +6/+6?
Oh, because if you have an Obelisk in play,
Grenadin. Oh, Grenadin drone. I thought you just said Grenadin, like from Waystone. No, yes. If you have Grenadin drone, yeah. That, I mean, and not just the charging +6/+6. Remember, it's a charging +6/+6 and overwhelm, which is a lot better than just +6/+6.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all heads going to be great. I give it 5 stars. Easiest 5-star in the set, I think.
Oh my goodness, it's so hard to give a card 5 stars because the barrier for entry is so high. But at least in Expedition, I think this is going to see significant play.
I'm giving it 5 stars. Sure. I mean, in Throne it's a little bit worse, but I think definitely Expedition is 5 stars. So, anyways, next card is Hermit Gardener. It is 5 cost time for a 6/5 with summon each of your little seeds ultimates 2 turns sooner. Then play 2 more little seeds. So for those of you that hate turn to seed, this is Direwolf saying, "Hey, we hear you. Here's a 5 cost card."
Yeah, so Hermit Gardener is actually a little more interesting than I think it might initially look. So it seems kind of similar to Scrap Tank for me, and that is something that a mono time deck doesn't really have. Like, if for some reason monotame is pairing with trying to go wide, having a 5-drop that creates additional bodies, that could be relevant. Is it good? Well, I mean, 6/5 for 5, that's a bit behind rate for what time does these days, and the 0/2s are not that exciting. But man, I think I think this card could be sneaky playable in the right deck. Like a deck that doesn't want to play Fire or Shadow for their token makers, but makes use of tokens well. I could see this card actually being seeing some play.
So I was gonna say I was gonna say very similar things, but a little bit more like in the camp of I think it's a little bit more playable. I think this is gonna be the dark horse of the set. I think this card I'm gonna make a bold statement. I think this card is actually very playable. At the very least, we have Crack the Earth, and this is a 5 cost card. So I think this can be a very good Crack the Earth target, especially if you are playing other units, and you can then use this to tutor up when the opponent does cast the turn to seed if need be. Even if it's main deck though, the cool is that the future Hermit Gardeners do power up prior Hermit Gardeners, and I think this card is just I think the seeds are better than people give them the credit for. I think that making 3 bodies is going to be very good. I think that like you might compare it to like Big Brother, but the problem with Big Brother, of course, is that the 8/8 doesn't do anything, right? This is a smaller
Yeah.
body, but it still does something, right? It's still a 6/5 that can do things. And I think that it's easy to underestimate the value of both seeds and just having 3 bodies for 1 card. As you said, Scrap Tank is a really good card. This card doesn't grow like Scrap Tank grows, but the original body is larger and the seeds do grow by themselves. Yeah, I think this card's gonna be. I think this card's going to be good, and I'm gonna say it's the dark horse of the set, and I want it to see play.
All right, we'll see some seeds growing. It just occurs to me that the
Yes.
wording is a little ambiguous. Yeah.
So what Saints referring to is the fact that it says each of your little seeds ultimates 2 turns sooner, and little seed says when you start your turn with little seed for the 5th time, it grows. So if your seed is already at 3 and you play it, does it grow immediately, or do you have to wait a turn for it to grow? That's the question I believe Sunny is referring to, and the answer is that if it does grow immediately, the card gets I think a lot better. But if you have to wait 1 turn, which I think is probably what it's going to be based on the wording of little seed itself, then the card is roughly the same.
Yeah, and like, what if you're on your 4th turn, and like the ultimate would happen on the 4th turn after you've already played it? Like, does it just miss the ultimate? I don't think that's how it would work. Played it like,
I don't think it's gonna miss the ultimate. Direwolf does not that would not do that sort of thing.
but like that's theoretically possible based on the wording. Anyway, we'll figure out how that one works soon enough. All right, the next one is the Word of Power. This is a 5 cost triple time spell. Your units get deadly overwhelm, but if you have 5 justice, when a unit attacks this turn, play a +2/+2 longsword on it, and 5 primal, your units go berserk. So this one's interesting. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, this one is sort of the one that I was obliquely referring to when I said that if you get both sides of it, you win the game. I still don't think that's going to be the greatest strategy to play for both sides, but this is sort of the one exception to my theory that these 5 cost spells are just 2 faction cards, just 2 different 2 faction cards. Because this one, if you get all 3 modes, units get deadly and overwhelm, they get +2/+2, and they get berserk. And especially because it's not they get +2/+2. It's when they attack they get +2/+2. Because they're berserking, they get +2/+2 twice. So they get, more like, +2 and then a +4. And they get deadly and overwhelm, which is really good with having extra stats. And berserk means they deal extra damage. So if you get this card off, you pretty reliably will win the game if you have like 3 units in play. I still think this card's probably not going to be very good as a 3 faction card, but I do think it's interesting. I think it'll be fun to play with, even if it's not very good.
Yeah, I just did the math. If you have 3/1/1s in play and you have this turned on each
Yep.
side, that deals 24 damage if there are no blockers. I think that's right. It's 9 plus 15, right?
Yeah, 9 plus 15, yeah, 24.
Yeah. Okay.
As I said, right, you have 3 attackers, you hit both sides, and then you just basically win the game. If they are any bigger, if you have 4, you do just win the game on the spot. So this is my exception.
Yeah, so like this could be a really interesting card out of Crack the Earth markets. Now, the deck that it would be good in doesn't really exist. We haven't seen too many decks that are heavy on the influence for time, justice, and primal. We've seen a few Alessi aggressive decks that use those factions, but I don't think they generate the influence in order to do this type of thing. So it's really interesting. Like the potential is there. You kind of need all of them. Like I just don't think that doing 2 of these is even enough. Like I guess the deadly overwhelm and +2/+2 is maybe good enough.
Note though, they do get to keep Deadly and Overwhelm in the future, right? So like that is a benefit, right? It's not this turn; it is forever. So I think the Justice half, the Combray half,
Oh.
is going to be more powerful than the Elysian half. But I'm not convinced about that either. But I do think it is more powerful.
Yeah, so I guess it could be like a one of market card that when you have the justice half, it's pretty good, and then when you have the primal half, you just win the game.
It's nice that it is, as always, Crack the Earth is going to make this card very good. Well, not very good. The Crack is going to make this card better, right? End of turn, play Crack the Earth, grab this, and you have an extra attacker on your turn anyways as well. And these cards like Trailmaker are going to be very good with this card because you get the influence that you need. And this card requires 13 influence to win the game, which is a lot. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think this is only playable in the market because it does nothing until the turn that it actually wins the game.
It's very much a Bizarre Stampede.
Yeah, that's a good example. All right, next card is a 6 cost time unit, costs double time. It's an 8/4. It's called Sewer Kuzdu. It has Overwhelm and Entomb. If it's your turn, draw Sewer Kuzdu from your void. This seems kind of like filler, like kind of interesting recursion, but
Okay, here's my thought about this card. You ready? So the next card on our list is one in Justice for pending execution. Okay,
okay.
completely dismiss this card. It looks like this card will be a fun little draft card potentially. I saw a cute thing where if you have like a Talir and you play like Devouring Shadows on this to make this a 0 cost thing, it'll die immediately, and then Talir will mean that you draw it immediately, and then you play it immediately, it dies immediately, and then you draw it immediately. You can no, you know,
Wait. No. That doesn't work. You can't play cards that have 0 health. They never make it into play.
you can no, you know, you can't grasping at shadows them, but you can play them out from your hand. And Surakudzu notably does not. It draws it from the void, right? So if you have Talir, it gives it Destiny, and it has 0 health. Then you draw it from your void, which you can play a Dark Return on a 0 health unit or a -2 health unit. You can play Last Chance on a 0 health unit. So I think that this would work. I think this would go infinite. I think it's terrible, but it does go infinite, and it sounds like a fun
Oh,
meme.
okay. Today I learned.
So moving on, pending execution, one in a justice for a curse, and it says at the start of your turn, kill the cursed unit. When the cursed unit hits you, sacrifice pending execution.
I don't think this card is very good. Like, most of the time, you're killing units because you don't want them to hit you. If you're already at the point where they're not hitting you and you're stable, you're already winning. And I think this just is not as good as other removal options out there.
Yeah, I think this card again is going to be more interesting in draft than in constructed because if it was like in draft, there's a lot more chance of board stall where you both don't have like a removable spell or whatever, and you don't want them to hit you. This card. I mean, this card really just feels like it's like transplanted from like a draft format.
I guess, but these are campaign cards. They're only
I
going to
know that's
be
the
in
weird part.
the.
Sewer Cuds is rare, but like this is an uncommon even, right? So it feels like oh, we took this draft card and we moved into a campaign. But anyways, so moving on. Their next card is an actual playable. Is Kira Ascending. It is 2 Justice for a 3/2. If you have 4 Justice, that when you play a spell directly on Kira, draw a card. If you have 6 Justice, it gets +2/+2 in Endurance. And when you have 8 Justice, when Kira attacks, give another attacking unit her attack and health.
Yeah, I think you and I had the same thought when looking at this card, which probably means it's the same thought that everyone is having. Boy, I am glad that they nerfed those Rakano cards before printing this one. Holy cow, this with Silverblade Intrusion and Friends in Low Places. No, thank you. I do not want that format.
Yeah, so this is the card I was referring to. I'm glad they nerf Arcana with these cards being released, but this is the card I was also referring to when I said defective Flamebot in Rakano might be playable. Right, with this and Kira, you have 8 cards that benefit off of you playing spells on them, right? So like you approach critical mass necessary to have that be good. You still have Silverblade Intrusion, you still have Friends in Low Places, even if they are nerfed and a lot less powerful. Plus, other spells. So I think that the fact that we have the two of them together might make this sort of playable spells played on your units deck a thing, possibly.
Well,
We also still have, I think we also still,
I only top 8'd a tournament with the spells played on your unit deck. I mean, I don't think you need that much more. That deck really wanted another 2-drop, and Kira Ascending would go great in it. I was playing geez, no, I wasn't playing Railgun's Disciple. I was playing the other Kira. And that
Oh,
received,
OG
yeah,
Kira.
yeah, that received buffs really well. The unfortunate, like, endurance is not that great, unfortunately. Like, the battle skill here is not one that helps that much. But hey, maybe that's a good thing. I mean, if it got flying or something, maybe it would just kill people too quickly. But yeah, this with Finest Hour is an expedition. You can still play Friends in Low Places as a pump spell that occasionally has some upside. You get to play.
Silverblade Intrusion still, as I said.
Yeah, I
Uh,
guess so. I don't think that. I think that's a card for a different deck because, well, it might work for this one, but like if you're just trying to double your damage and double your fun, kill them that way with like the Justice Stranger, Kodash's Stranger, and just make a really big unit quickly, or with like Kira. Uh, I don't think Silverblade Intrusion works well in those types of decks, but yeah. Like, there's definitely a lot of tools for this card.
So one thing I wanted to say, is I want to disagree with Sunny. I think endurance is actually a powerful keyword. I think it is very good. I think it's also specifically very good on Kira in this instance as well. For one thing, being able to attack and block is very good versus aggressive decks. But also on Kira specifically, the first text, right? If you're holding a Finest Hour, you attack. Your opponent knows you have Finest Hour. They can't, they can't block if they know they have a combat trick. So they're like, okay, I guess I'll let it through. And then their turn, they still can't attack into Kira because you still have the Finest Hour. So, you get to hold up the trick on attack and block. And I think that the endurance is going to be very good. I think that, more importantly, though, that the second ability puts it above 3 health, which is very important because at 3, it dies to Seer and Torch, as I said.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point about the endurance. Also part of why like Geomar is a little scarier than it might seem. So yeah, I think the last ability is like not that relevant. I mean, it's really cool. It's a permanent buff, right?
I think it's potentially, yes, it's a permanent buff. I think it's a little more relevant than you might be giving credit for because if you are playing Friends in Low Places with this, then you presumably wanting to get to 8 Justice because if you're playing Kira, you're not playing for the fire side of Friends in Low Places because that would be ridiculous to play Kira and go for fire. So I think it's more relevant than you're giving credit for, but it's not why you play the card. It's like, oh, it's late game. The card just got a lot better, right? You're playing it for the first 2 modes. If you can get to the final mode, you're just doing swimmingly.
Yeah.
I think this card, I'll give it a 4 out of 5 this time compared to Alhaid.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good bet to see some play. All right, next up we have Silver Knight, which is the Justice spell. It costs 5 and triple Justice. It says kill a ready enemy unit, gain its attack in armor. 5 just if when you have 5 primal, when a unit goes to the enemy void this turn, draw a card. And when you have 5 shadow, kill an exhausted enemy unit, discard its attack in cards from their deck. And it's worth noting that the primal side of it, when a unit goes to the enemy void this turn, draw a card, is activated if cards are flipped from the top of their deck as part of the shadow half of it. This is an interesting card. What do you think of it, Stormblast?
I actually like this card. I like this card a fair bit. I think that this card is very epitome of my style of thinking for this, where it's 2 different modes, right? There's a Haru side to this card, and there's a Argenport side to this card. And technically, if you do them both, you get a lot of value because you kill 2 enemy units, you draw 2 cards off those units, and then because they're discarding cards equal to the attack, then you get to draw all the cards that are void units that went to the void off the discard, and you're just like blah 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 blah. But the thing is, you're not going to be getting there. So it's 2 different cards. It's a Haru card and an Argenport card. And the Haru card says kill a unit, gain armor equal to its attack, and draw a card. If as long as you have the 8 influence, right? And I think that I've always been looking forward to the effect of kill a unit, draw a card because we actually haven't had any of those yet. I was like, where is my card that just says kill a unit, draw a card? Well, this is the closest thing to that we've gotten. Now on the other side of Argenport, it's kill 2 enemy units, gain some armor, or kill 2 units and then minor discard. I think the Haru side's a lot better. I think that killing 1 ready enemy unit is going to be better than killing an exhausted unit as well. And I think that gaining armor is going to be more relevant than discarding cards, and obviously drawing cards more relevant than discarding cards as well. So I think that kill a unit, gain some armor, draw a card is going to be surprisingly playable, even if it does cost 5.
Yeah, this is a really interesting card. I think that if it does see play, it is because of the primal side as well. Like, I agree with that. Kill an enemy and draw a card. But like 5 cost kill spells, we don't really use those. We don't see those. The removal that people actually end up using is cheaper. And like, for example, just to compare this to another card, Ikaria First Reaper, is that the title? The Shadow Ikaria,
Yes.
yeah, it costs 6. It costs 1 more than this, and it has kill a unit and play a 5/5 flying, deadly. And when that card dies, you get another effect. Granted, it's specifically for mono shadow decks. It's a bit different in what decks can actually play it. But like, man, five power kill spells, I think that might be too much to be useful, even if it is drawing you a card. And that's not mentioning the fact that it has to be a ready unit. I don't know what like how relevant that's going to be, but I like, if you're playing against a fire deck that just has all charge units, this is just not going to kill anything ever. Or like, it'll kill a Grenadin that they play on turn 6 or whatever, or 2-drop that they play super late in the game. So I could see that actually being a pretty big drawback in the unit having to be ready in order for this to kill it.
I think that I think I think that yes, the ready thing is a drawback. If you there's a couple other cards that work on just ready units, like there's the crown, I think, as the from a different campaign that's like, like an Eye of Winter but only for ready units, and you discover that, oh man, things are less ready than you think they are when you play that crown. But I do think that, I do think gaining a little bit of armor and drawing a card is a powerful effect. I think that the real downside, of course, is that you probably can't play this on turn 5. If the one thing that's probably stopping it, I think this card, if it was just 5 Haru, right, 5 Justice Primal with no other cost, kill ready unit, gain some armor, draw a card, I think it would be, very playable. Because it's like turn to seed with a treasure trove, right, for 1 card, right. There's a really, it's really efficient. It's really good card advantage while also impacting the board and getting you some health to help stabilize.
Yeah.
The problem is, of course, that it's really expensive influence-wise.
Yeah, it also just depends so much on what deck you're playing against. Like Mono Time and Mono Shadow, yeah, this card seems great against them. A deck that's going wide, like a Praxis deck or a Fire deck that is charging at you, not so good. So,
That being said, this does have one of the better base cases, right? If you don't have the extra tag and you just have the kill a unit, sometimes you just gotta kill a unit, gain some armor, right? That's it's not what you want to be doing, but if you got to do it to stabilize and win the game, then you got to do it. So it's got a decent, like the fire one base case is like, convert 1 unit into 2 units. It's like not very good for 5 cost. And like Word of Power is like your units get deadly and overwhelm. Yay! Like you're not paying 5 for that effect, but like kill a unit, if you really had to, I would pay that much to kill a unit. If I really had to, but I don't really want to.
all right, I'm voting down on this one. I don't think it's going to see play.
Yeah, I guess I'll vote down on it too. Now you convinced me. I changed my mind. I wanted to see play because I really want to draw a card and kill a unit at the same time.
I think there are a lot of people out there who would love that. All right, next card, 7 Double Justice Gold Plate Valkyrie. It's a 5/6 flying endurance. Has summon play a unit with cost 2 or less from your market. This is a really interesting one, but I don't think it's good. Its rate is just not good enough. Like a 5/6 that doesn't protect itself, that just gets a card that you have to set up in your market. I don't think it's enough.
I love this design. I hope it sees play, but I swear that I love this design a lot. Because it's just a really cool design. It's possibly 1 or 2 costs too expensive. If it was like a 6 cost 4 or 5 flyer endurance with this effect, it'd be a lot more playable, obviously. Surprisingly, cheaper cards are more playable. Hot take from Stormblessed on FEcast.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but
if this card was like something similar to Crown Rush Pressgang, right? If it's a 4-cost unit that says play a 1-cost unit from your market or something like that,
then that would be busted.
well, yeah, then it's really cool. Then your market is like 5 different 1-cost units. You have like Gar and Embargo Officer and stuff like that. But I think it's too expensive as it is.
I think you're underrating it slightly. I think there are some cool things to do with it. For example, you can play off faction cards with this, right? You don't need to have a market. If you're playing like a Mono Justice deck, you can like pull out Vox or something. I mean, I don't know why you pull out Vox in Mono Justice, but you could, and that's a little bit cool. Sadly, one of the cooler like flexible natures I had for this card, like you could have a market of like, I'll grab a Kilo, or like I'll grab a Mavloff Huntress. I was like, oh, Mavloff Huntress would be really cool for this. And off faction, Mavloff Huntress, the opponent, will be like, wow. But this card has endurance, and you can't do undo endurance units, so that kind of stinks. I mean, it's still a unit in play already for Mavloft, in like 7. I mean, it's still like an interesting option, I feel, to put Maybloff Huntress in a gold plate Valkyrie market. And I will definitely be trying this card out because I think the effect is really cool. And just like pulling off an off faction 2-drop sounds like completely rad. It also is interesting. Now, I'm not going to say per se good, but it's interesting that you can grab either the Kira Ascending or 2-drop Ikaria. And when you grab those off of Gold Plate Valkyrie, you can pretty much assume that they're going to be turned on for all of their modes. Even their 8 Justice mode. When you're playing Gold Plate Valkyrie, you can pretty reliably assume you're getting 8 Justice either this turn or the next turn. So I think that aspect of it is not very good, but it is cute.
The Huntress thing is pretty interesting, but yeah, having endurance and not all automatically having a body to make a 7/7 killer is definitely detrimental. And
imagine if it was like an Overwhelm or Aegis or whatever, then like, hey, could actually work with Maybloff Huntress.
I think this card might be playable if it had Aegis, because like 7-drops kind of have to do something or protect themselves, right?
If it had Aegis, I think it'd be exceptionally playable. It would be easily just a great card. As is, I do like the card, and I do want it to see play.
And
I'll give it a 3 out of 5.
Well, you're definitely not getting an Ikaria or a Kira Ascending, because those are 4-ofs in your deck. Like if you have a Rockstar 2-drop.
That's why I said it was cute, but not going to be played in that aspect, because you're obviously just playing them in your deck. Also, Kira and Throne combos well with Ikaria because you're trying to get to 6 for each of the effects anyway.
Yeah.
But anyways, but yes, I think I like Gold Plate Valkyrie. I think there are going to be some interesting interactions where it's 2 or less, which means that there's maybe a good 1-drop. I don't know what there is. But I want the card to see play. I'm going to give it a 3. I'm going to border on a 4, though. I'm going to make some bold controversial statements. Hermit Gardener and Gold Plate Valkyrie are my bold controversial statements of the set so far.
All right. You're kind of convincing me, but I'm still skeptical. 7 is so much. You can get Zalchi for 7. Okay, next card. Into the primal cards of the set, we have Dazzle, a 2-cost double primal card. It's a fast spell. It has 2 options: stun an enemy unit with cost 2 or more, then plunder, or negate an enemy spell with cost 2 or more, then plunder. I think we have our new unseal / negate for backlash for the future of Throne and I guess Expedition.
Maybe. I mean, I think I'm not entirely convinced by that statement. It depends what you mean. If you mean like main deck backlash, then yes, I think Dazzle's just a way better main deck backlash. But in the market, I'm not 100% sure because the fact that it is cost 2 or more means that you can't hit like Torch or whatever if you're playing against like in the sky Spellcrag Mirror or whatever. You can't like negate the double damage Torch is about to kill you. But as is, I do think the card is surprisingly it's a weird card. It's a very weird card. It's like half of a Defiance mixed with like most of a Backlash mixed with a Plunder, and that amount of flexibility is probably powerful enough to put it in the deck in a main deck slot capacity, especially with the Plunder putting it over the top, right?
Yeah, I mean the Plunder is very good, especially like a lot of the time backlashes are played pretty late in the game, right? And that's when you might have an extra power sitting around. One thing about it is if you are using it as a negate, then you don't get to you have to wait until your opponent actually plays something you can play it on before you get to plunder, so that could be a little awkward. But I mean, you mentioned things like Torch. I think that Defiance might be a good example of it, but usually when you're looking to backlash something, you're not looking to backlash something that costs 1. You're looking to get a power advantage. Like you force your opponent into a position where they have to play Harsh Rule or Shenhua Speaks and pay 5 power for it, and you trade it with your 2 cost spell backlash. I think that's usually what you're trying to do with a negate effect. And Dazzle works that way too. Like it's just telling you how to play the card correctly. Don't counter those cards that only cost 1. Wait for the big ones in order to actually use it. So, and then on top of that, you can randomly stun a unit. I don't know how important that is going to be, but like that's definitely upside that could be pretty relevant.
I think that upside is exceptionally relevant. I think that if it was just the second mode, or if I think it was just the second mode, or if it didn't have the plunder, I don't think I'd like the card very much. But with everything,
I think it would still be good either way.
Oh really?
Yeah.
You think just wait? There's the second mode. You think like negate an enemy spell to cost 2 or more than plunder would be playable enough by itself?
Yeah, I think that's better than backlash.
Main deck?
I've never liked playing backlash's main deck, but
I think I like playing 4x Dazzle main deck. I think in a control deck that's playing like Harsh Rule, but possibly not in Expedition where you have to play Shenhua Speaks and this is double primal, but in like Throne when you can like stun a unit and plunder, which gives you some advantage on stunning and also like allows you to set up for Harsh Rule. I think that this card has some insane flexibility looking at it again, especially with the plunder. The fact that it can do the plunder stuff is really important to me. And I think I'm going to give this card a 5, actually. I'm going to give this card a 5 out of 5. I think it's going to see lots of play in, unitless decks and also possibly not unitless decks because it does a lot like if you're being a proactive deck, negate the harsh rules or just like stun their unit to get in for damage if you're playing, this like, blitz deck or whatever, right? Blitz can play this to stun to get in damage and trigger your spell stuff as well as to counter the harsh rules.
Yeah, and one more thing about its influence cost, it does cost double primal, but these types of effects you usually don't want on turn 2 anyway. It's usually a later
Yeah.
game effect to trade with a big spell they're playing, or like at least a medium spell, something that costs from 3 to 5 power.
I'm going to give this card a 5 out of 5. I'm going to say lots and lots of play. You're going to be seeing this for a very long time to come in both formats.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's just going to... I think that you're not going to see Unseal or Backlash. You might see Unseal if, like, the curse part is really relevant, but I think this is significantly better than either of those two.
Okay, so moving on, we have Drawl Ascending. 2 Primal. Oh, it's part of the Ascending cycle. You might guess that by the name. It's 2 Primal for a 1/3. It has... for 4 primal, when it attacks, draw a card, discard it unless it's a spell. For 6 primal, +2/+2 in Berserk. And for 8 primal, when you play a spell, deal its cost to the enemy player.
Yeah, I don't think this is good. Someone mentioned that, I forgot where I read this, but someone mentioned that Direwolf was going to figure out a way to make the primal card of this cycle not very interesting, and that's exactly how I feel about Drawl.
I think it's better than Clodagh by a significant margin. I don't know if that's saying more about this card or about Clodagh, but I actually like this card a fair bit. I think this card is. I think it's cute that I guess they all have the when it attacks synergy. But getting the Berserk off means you are more likely to actually draw a card and discard a card. Unfortunately, you can only have so many spells in your deck, right? If you're playing a deck of 40 spells, you're only going to draw a card about half the time, anyways. You need like 37, you draw a card half time when it attacks. That being said, I actually think this card could be a solid role player in in a spell based deck, right? Either like a mid range spells or like a unitless deck. I mean, maybe not the unitless part, but like if you get to 6 primal, it dodges the Torch and Seer mark, which is relevant in my opinion. And being like a solid body, or if, like in the mirror of being able to attack and like maybe draw a card. I think it could be solid. It's not going to be game winning. It's not going to be the linchpin of your deck. If you get to 8, you can like pull off like this plus like a double damage Channel the Tempest, whatever it's right. Like that's not going to be that relevant. But I do think that it's solid. I think that it could be a very solid support inclusion to just prop the deck up.
I think this is a slam dunk unplayable.
Okay.
Like you just are probably never attacking with a 1/3 unless it's a 3/5 when you have 6 primal. So like I don't know, it just seems so difficult to actually get value out of that first threshold, and maybe
Sunny gives it a 1. I think I give it like a 3.
I think this is totally unplayable. It's just like the stats don't line up with something that you want to attack with. That's how I feel.
I could also give it. I'm tempted to give this a 2, so that way I can give one of each cycle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With this. We'll get to that. We'll get to that when we get to the last card in the cycle, but I'll explain it then. But anyway, so moving on, we have Fierce Protection. 5 primal. It's part of the 5 costs cycle. So for 5 triple primal, you and your units get Aegis, and for 5 fire, kill each enemy weapon. Each weapon in your deck gets +5 attack. And then for 5 shadow, play a card from the enemy void. It gets void bound. This is a spell. It is not a fast spell.
I'm not too much a fan of this one. The base case is pretty bad. Like you and your units get Aegis for 5 at slow speed. Yeah, that's not good. If you can kill enemy weapons, sure, that's interesting. But you can't really count on that most of the time. Maybe as a market card. And if playing a card from the enemy void is also just very unreliable. If you're going to play a card that relies on like milling the opponent or something, you might as well play Savage Incursion or like Solitude, just end the game. So this one gets a thumbs down from me.
Yeah, I think this card is just bad. I think this card is probably the worst in the cycle. Just because its first mode doesn't really do anything. If this was like a fast speed card, then I think it could be like somewhat interesting to like play cards in the void at fast speed, and like giving your units Aegis at fast speed is like not an irrelevant effect, whereas at slow speed it kind of is more relevant than not. But like the Skycrag mode is just like kill each enemy weapon. Like how often are weapons being played? This isn't even like is this your market card to kill attachments? You gotta be playing like a deck that has a bunch of weapons and only cares about weapons and not other attachments. It's not even a time-based card, so you can't even like crack the earth for this. And its second mode is interesting and it will get you. There will be games where this card will destroy you because they'll like steal your like, I don't know, Kairos or something. Be like, I stole Kairos. But like, yeah, that's just it's so expensive and there's just like Savage Incursion. I'd rather draw 3 cards than play a random card from the enemy void. And it's not random, obviously, but like it is random because you don't know what the enemy is playing. You don't know what cards are going to be in their void, so you can't choose what the effect is. And of course, I think as Sunny said, Savage Incursion or Solitude are just better effects for taking advantage of having lots of cards in the enemy void.
Let's move on to the last.
I think it's like a 1.
Let's move on to the last primal card, and this is Isra Loyal Mount. It's a 5-cost double primal 4/5. It has flying. When one of your units hits a player, Isra gets +1 attack, and summon your other units get flying this turn. What do you think about Isra?
I think it's a little bit too expensive. I think if it was like a 4-cost 2/4 or a 4-cost 2/5, I'd like it a lot more. As is, and I'll let Sunny. I won't spoil Sunny's comments about Isra, but I personally think like I guess if you're playing, you're playing like a tokens deck, right? So like you pick up all of your like 1/2s for mobilization. And your Isra's now like a 7/5. You got in for 3 damage or something. Or like you pick up, I guess, like Milos or something. I don't know. I don't really like Isra. I think it's just a little bit expensive for what it does, and like how often are your units can hit players? Like how big can Isra grow before the game ends? Like how big would Isra need to be on your first attack for Isra to be good? Is Isra being a 7/5 good? Like a 7/5 that gets in for like 5 to 6 maybe? I don't know. I don't really like this card at first glance, although I know Sunny might convince me otherwise.
Yeah, I think that well, I'm also like not super thrilled about this card, but I think it's better than Crystallize. Like Crystallize is a card that you really want to use offensively. It helps your units get through, and unfortunately, Crystallize doesn't leave behind something that helps your board position. You just get a second attack in, and Isra gets you that first attack in most of the time. I mean, assuming your opponent doesn't have flying blockers, but also just does something on its own, which is something that Crystallize really struggles with. Like if you're playing defense, Crystallize is very poor. If you're if you are just playing against control deck and you got a Crystallize earlier but got swept, so you don't have any units, it doesn't do anything. So I think it's a better Crystallize. I was never a huge, well, okay, I used to be a really huge fan of Crystallize way back in like set 1 or something, but it's been a long time since I thought that Crystallize was a good card to be playing in the deck, and I think this is better than it. So I think it has some opportunity to see play, but it's also not like super exciting. It's not, I don't know. It's just like,
I think where it's most likely to play is Elysian, because I thought like the common theme for this podcast is, hey, look at Crack the Earth. Crack the Earth is a good card. But I think this card is most likely to play with Crack the Earth markets and Elysian, especially because if you're picking up units, I want to be picking up my all heads. I want to be picking up my 5/5 overwhelms and smack them in the face in the air instead of letting them block it potentially.
yeah, whatever your 4-drop of choice is, probably not Ubzot because of the influence requirements, but you
Oh,
can.
I know. I'll give Sandstorm Titan flying and fly over them with my 5/6.
Okay. enough. All right, let's get on to the last of our ascending cycle. This is Akantha Ascending. 2-cost double shadow. It's a 2/1 4 shadow. When Akantha attacks, play a 2/1 dark elf. 6 shadow +2/+2 in flying, and 8 shadow. When Akantha hits the enemy player, they sacrifice a unit. I'm really curious what number you're giving this one, because you alluded to that earlier, and by my calculations or my recollection, the good numbers are gone, and I think this card's pretty good.
So I was saying that I can give each of them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Clodagh got a 1, Allhead gets a 5, Kira gets a 4, Drawl gets a 2, which means Akantha gets a 3. In my ranking of the cycle, and I do think that all those are pretty accurate as far as Akantha might be underrating slightly. The most comparable card to Akantha is probably old Ikaria, 2-drop Ikaria, not old Ikaria, but 2-drop Ikaria, which I think required 6 justice, right, to go off. Was it 6?
Yes, definitely
Yeah.
6.
Yeah, when 2-drop Ikaria had 6 justice, it became a 4/3 flyer with endurance. When Akantha has 6 shadow, it becomes a 4/3 flyer that when it attacks, you play a 2/1. So I think those cards are most comparable. The downside, of course, is that this card is not flying already. This card can't ramp you to the 6 shadow, but this card does have a bit of interesting play earlier. Overall, I do think it's worse than Small Icaria, and I would say that Small Icaria was like a 4 or 5 at the time. So I think that giving this a 3 is pretty reasonable.
I think this card's pretty good. I mean, like, it has obvious game against control decks where you just build and start brittling an army. Just if it, even it's the only thing on the board. Its size is pretty good. Although I guess you're right. 3 health is a liability. But I don't know. I think this card's pretty good. If you're in some sort of like mid-range mirror or something like that, the hitting the enemy player and having them sacrifice unit is a huge deal. So like that can really threaten them. But
Yeah, but like you can't play for that mode. You
yeah,
can't.
you're right.
You can sort of play. Like, I'll let you argue that Kira or Allhead could play for their 8 cost modes, but you can't say a Constant's playing for its 8 cost mode.
Yeah, you're probably right. I actually think that you've kind of talked me down on this card. So
Like I think this card it will be solid and it will be a good role player in the Mono Shadow decks to come. But I don't think it's going to be the busted card of the cycle.
yeah, you're probably right.
But also,
Okay.
and in Throne it dies a Snowball.
Yeah, it dies to Blightmoth too, which is strangely enough the card that's competing for in its slot.
And then of course the thing is in Throne, of course, is that unlike say even like Cloudaw, when it dies to Blightmoth / Snowball, is that Mono Shadow doesn't have many targets for Blightmoth or Snowball, whereas a Mono Fire deck would have a lot more targets, right? So like, oh, they get value out of the card that otherwise gets almost no value. So anyways, yes, but moving on, we have this Cassandrith's card? No, this is whose card is? Do you know whose card this is, Sonny?
Ooh.
This is a commute. Oh, this is this Kilebovich?
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
Kolebovich.
so noted streamer Kilobovich managed to reach enough influence to buy a custom card, and this next shadow card is the one that they designed. This is 4 in a shadow for a 2/6 cultist, Dr. Zytrom. Enemy damage can't be deadly, which I don't know what that's worth, but it has summon. Play a unit with cost 5 or less from the enemy void. It gets charge and flying. Sacrifice it at the end of the turn. So you get to Haunting Scream, but for the opponent's void.
Yeah, but more relevant, you also get a 2/6 body, which
Yes,
is
yes, no,
that's
no,
pretty important when you're playing cards like Haunting
yes, no.
Scream. I don't think that this card is well, I'm not too optimistic on it because you're really counting on your opponent having a good Haunting Scream target, and that's like asking for a lot. On the other hand, in Expedition, there are a lot of cards now that just get their value front loaded one way or another. For example, if you do this with against a Mavloff Huntress, you imbue Dr. Zytrom, and all of a sudden you have a 4/7 killer that can deal with a lot of things, and you get the 2/6 to stick around. And then there are also, of course, the legendary cards, some of which have abilities when they are summoned, such as Marley, who silences a unit or kills a relic.
or Jack.
Or like Jack, Rindra. There are a lot of cards that have their value front loaded in Expedition, and we're getting more and more of those. So it's really interesting.
Notably, you also prevent recursion with this card because you steal it, and so when you sacrifice, it goes to your void, so it doesn't go back to their void, right? So like if you like steal a Katra, then the opponent can't reanimate Katra with a card that's coming up shortly. But also, I just realized that in the Dr. Zytrom mirror, you can steal Dr. Zytrom with Dr. Zytrom, and then your opponent can steal Dr. Zytrom with their Dr. Zytrom, and you can just be throwing Dr. Zytroms at each other.
Yeah, I mean, that is pretty awesome. I was just thinking about that. The Dr. Zytrom mirror, you steal their Zytrom and then you steal something else in addition to that. Oh my goodness, you just go on a huge train.
And then when your Zytrom dies and they play another Zytrom and they steal your Zytrom, and they use that Zytrom to steal. Wait, so when you play one Zytrom, you can just steal all their Zytroms. So like I play a Zytrom, I steal your 3 Zytroms, and then like my Zytroms all die, and like I play Zytrom, I steal your
No, that
4
doesn't work because they get
Zytroms.
void bound, right? Oh no! What am I thinking of?
No,
I'm
no, they don't
thinking
get
of
void
a
bound.
different card. Oh, the fierce
Yeah,
protection.
these
Oh
don't
my
get void
goodness!
bound. The Zytroms all come back every time.
Please let us have the
Time.
Zytrom format for like a
Oh,
day,
man.
or like have an event where Zytrom is super powerful for some reason, because this sounds like a lot of fun for like one day.
Just set up a tournament where it's like, okay, your decks have to be Shadow, and you have to play 4 Doctor Zytroms. Go. Although the answer is that no, we just play units that they'd all be like 6 cost units and be like, aha, I've fooled your format. I'm playing only 6 cost units and removal spells. Okay, but anyways, Doctor Zytrom looks fun. I'm gonna give it fun out of 5. I don't think it's hard to evaluate. It's a very hard to evaluate card. I think it's a little bit better than the card Fierce Protection as far as using cards from the opponent's void, because it provides a 2/6 body, and it takes their card forever. And Charge and Flying with, as Sunny said, summoning a unit is relevant because like you can get like a Jack, for instance, and so being cheaper is relevant with Jack because then you only need 5 cost to play this and use Jack, whereas with Fierce Protection you need 1 extra cost. But anyways, I don't know about feel about this card as aside from his meme potential.
I think it'll sneak up on you. I think that like it's a good blocker, and there's enough cards that have their value front loaded that you might actually be able to get some value on top of a 2/6. Like if it's a 2/6 draw card, would that be good enough? Like
Sure.
maybe depends on the matchup, but like
How do you feel about enemy damage can't be deadly?
oh man, damage isn't deadly in constructed very often, so
Well, it also works on deadly units, right?
that's yeah, but like, and that like shows up sometimes, but it's just not that common. You're not playing like the
My scorpion traps.
yeah. Oh god, you're not playing like a 1/1 deadly in constructed nearly as often as you would in limited, right? Like I think that would be a
Yeah.
really relevant ability for limited. So it's hard to say. I'm having a tough time thinking of cards that are deadly that like focus on the deadly. Like Ikaria First Reaper has deadly. It doesn't matter most of the time.
But I can remove deadly from Ikaria First Reaper and just have them have a 6/6 flyer,
I
a
guess
5/5 flyer. Anyways,
it's good insurance against the Touch of Battle Torrential Downpour deck.
so overall, I think the card's a little bit worse than Sunny, but I don't think it's like as terrible as say like I don't know Sewer Kudzu. But I do think it'll be a very fun card. Okay, so moving on, we have Distracting Flashbang, a 5 Shadow 5/3 weapon, not relic weapon. So it goes on your units, and when the wielder hits the enemy player, deal one of their relics with cost 4 or more.
This is the Mirror Breaker and Rats.
No, because the Rats doesn't play relics that cost 4 or more very often, except for like one obelisk.
Oh, sorry, 4 or more. I thought it was 4 or less. Jeez.
I also made that same mistake where I was like, this is the perfect anti-rat card because none of the rats can block anyways. But it's 4 or more, not 4 or
Yeah,
less.
okay.
So it steals what is
Steals
it, like
World
chains.
Pyre.
Well,
Steals
sure.
Backbreaker.
I don't. I mean, the answer is, hey, look, it's a 5 cost card. You can play
Yep.
with Crack the Earth. But overall, I don't like
Yeah.
this card very much. I think it's not
Yeah,
very
I
good.
could see it being a market card like for that situation. If there's a World Pyre deck that sweeps, you crack the earth at the end of the turn, you put the flashbang on it, and you steal their World Pyre. So
Yeah. I don't hate it with Crack the Earth, but I think that I hate it with any other merchant. I think,
yeah.
and also like again, World Pyre decks aren't gonna not have Phase Age, right? The only World Pyre decks that, by the way, son, I was definitely correct. World Pyre with Transpose.
Yes, you were.
Okay.
I said that out loud at some point.
Okay. I'm not gonna belabor the point, but basically, you can't really steal World Pyre unless you can also break Face Age at the same time. So
Yeah. All right. Next card, Pull into Nightmares. This one's a really interesting one. 5 Triple Shadow. Play a unit with. This is a spell, not. Well, we'll get to that later. Play a unit with 5 cost 5 or less from your void. It gets +1/+1. If you have Quintuple Fire, it gets double damage. If you have Quintuple Time, Pull into Nightmares is fast. Fast reanimation. This one's really interesting.
yeah, I think this is probably the best card in this cycle. A lot of these cards are very wonky, but this card is just very good, especially because its base case is just very good, right? If you played 5 cosplay with cost 5 or less, your void gets +1/+1. That's, kind of equivalent to a, like Dark Return on a 4 drop, right? If you play Dark Return on a 4 drop and play it that turn, it's the same cost as Pull into Nightmare. So like, especially because, I guess you could like, again, Crack the Earth, but even just main deck, right? If you're playing it on like, Katra, right? We now have more ways to bring Katra back to, utilize its summon ability to bring more power to your void, or like Sandstorm Titan, just make like a really big Sandstorm Titan. And then you add the riders. In both cases, interesting in Stone Scar, giving something like, say, like double damage and charge and +1/+1 from the void sounds very powerful. And then making this a fast speed spell is like, I think, where the real money is, especially because you want to bring back your Sandstorm Titans or your Katras. And so like bring back a Katra at fast speed to block or at the end of the enemy turn is just going to be really good. So I think that the base case is really good, and I think that the kickers are also both pretty relevant.
I don't think that the base case is that good, but I do think that it is going to be a relevant card in Xenon decks. I mean, you mentioned Katra. I think that's a really good example. Another thing that comes to mind is if you have the 1 cost unit you could get back a Tovon with this. Sorry, the one that makes your cards cost one
Oh,
less on the enemy turn. You can
yes,
get back a
the
Tovon.
yes, the one cost 0/3. If you so since your cards cost one less on the opponent's turn, so then this card would be a 4 cost spell, and Tovon in the Void still cost one less and would cost 5. That is really cute.
Yeah, I'm not too like I don't think that this is going to be that good out of like Stone Scar decks. I think it's really tough to get all three sides of this, but I do think that
You're not so as I said before, if this card's not going to win the game if you get all 3 sides. So there is no way you should be playing this in your destruction decks. You should only be playing this in Stone Scar or in Xena, which I think is the intent for most of these cards, except for maybe the Time Justice Primal one.
yeah.
So like I think in Stone Scar, if you're playing it from like the market maybe, and in Xenon, you can either play with a Crack the Earth market, or I do think that main deck this card is probably good
Uh,
enough.
maybe it's close. It's certainly very interesting. It yeah, I think that in a deck that plays at fast speed most of the time, like some sort of Xenon ambush deck, I think that this could see uh, a reasonable amount of play, and probably as a one of because this is the type of card that requires setup and then in order to be a payoff. So like it doesn't seem that great in multiples. I could also see it like just getting back a Milos and bashing for 8 seems pretty good. What
That's what that's why I said out of the market in a Stone Scar deck, right?
Yeah.
Because you definitely want to play his main deck in Stone Scar, but like yeah, charge, double damage, overwhelm, +1/+1. Then you get to put the fireball back in their deck as well.
Yeah, or a Thunder of Wings token, that is a 5
Yeah,
cost unit, so that hits for 10. I mean, that's a
it's a
lot.
flyer.
Yeah.
Yeah, flying is just like overwhelm in that sense. Or like I guess Jack is not really the card you want to bring back with this because it already has
Yeah, it
double
already has
damage.
double damage. But like, a lot of fire cards these days have charge. So you can hit them immediately, which is what I think you want to be doing with this card if you're going for the fire side.
I think that this is definitely it's in Stone Scar. It's if you're playing it, it's definitely in the market. In Xenon, it's probably in the market, but I do think that there's a potential that it's also just main deck playable. I think it has the potential. I think it has the power.
I think it's still a market card. Well, basically, what we're getting from the set is that like Crack the Earth is so much better. There are so many cards that cost
I
5,
know.
and I don't know about you, but when I was building Crack the Earth markets, I'd always be like, what do I play? I'm not quite sure. There seems to be
Yeah,
a
there.
lack of playables cards that I really want to play in my
Well,
market.
well. So it wasn't. So the thing about Crack the Earth that's really interesting, especially in Expedition, but also even in Throne, is that it's not that there aren't 5 cost cards that are decent. It's that in a market you want the flexibility, right? You want to have cards that do different things, and there's not really the difference in things that happen, right? There's like I can play a unit that can block, or I can play a unit that can block, or I can play a unit that can block. You
Yeah.
know, there's not really this like flexibility of like you can't get like removal spell or negate, right? Like what are you gonna do? Grab delay, as your negate? No, you're not. But like if you're grabbing like a Lumen Defender or Poland Nightmare, suddenly hey, there's a little bit more options that you can pick from between things that like do different things that can work situationally powerful. So yeah, the final card on our list is the card that I think is the problem. I'm gonna go full blown bold controversial statement because those are more fun to make. I think this card is the best card in the bundle in the campaign. It is called Broken Contract. It is a power, just a power with no influence. Doesn't give you any influence. It has fate though. If you have a unit in your void, play a 4/1 sellsword that can't block, and it does come into play undepleted.
The power of this card is really interesting. Anytime you tack on something to a functional power, especially when it's undepleted, you have to watch out because those things that's just free value that you get. This one, being like fate is just kind of weird because it's difficult to control when you draw it unless you're playing petition. But I think that the decks that this would want, like decks that would want this type of effect, don't really want to play petition. So they're in order for this card to be good, you kind of have to give up some power on cards like the Ascending Cycle that require a lot of influence. Like, I think that this is probably best in a deck that's like Skycrag aggro or something that doesn't have influence requirements that are too tough and that are aggressive so that the 4/1 can't block really means something. And man, they just printed a bunch of 2 drops that have really heavy influence requirements on top of being right after a set that just has really heavy influence requirements, and can't play too many cards like this. I know that the obvious thing to do is to get with Petition, but aggro decks don't usually like playing Petition, and it works against, like, if you're trying to play 4 Silexes or something like that. So I think that this is caught between a rock and a hard place, and it has a lot of power, and I could see it seeing play, but there are very real costs to trying to make this work, and whether that's worth it compared to the power of the new 2-cost cards they're printing, I'm just not sure.
So I agree with what a lot of Sonny's premises, but I disagree with some of his conclusions because I think he's missing a couple points that I will make now, or I will attempt to make to explain my opinion for why I think this card is potentially the most busted of the set. Now, first of all, it's not as like ubiquitously busted as Torch. It'll see play in one specific archetype, right? It's not going to see play in more than one. It's going to see play in low influence aggro decks. It can't really see play anything else because the units can't block and it doesn't produce influence. It comes with undepleted. So first of all, I think that this card it sounds like aggressive decks don't really want Petition. Yeah, because Petition didn't come with a 4/1 body attached to it. Like if I could play a 2-cost 4/1 can't block draw card, even if that card is a power, I would play that in an aggro deck. That's a really good card. That's like in an aggro deck, that's like what even hand golem levels of powerful, right? Like it's not quite as it gives one less card than even hand golem, but the unit it provides is better at attacking than even hand golem is. So Sunny said earlier in the cast, aggro decks can actually use a lot of their power these days. Whether it's putting it in the market or playing it so you can yes, you can't discard this to Jack as a sigil effect, but if you draw this, then you are more likely to have other sigils in play in your hand to discard a Jack. I think that with this Petition, it's really good. Just like randomly getting off the top will be powerful, right? It's kind of like playing an emblem. It's not that difficult to get units in your void in an aggro deck. If you don't have any units in your void as an aggro deck, you're basically winning the game anyways. Like oh no, I don't get value off my broken contract. I guess I'll just hit you with my 3 Miloses. Whatever will I do? So the other important point to make with this is that Sonny mentioned like Skycrag aggro. Did you notice that of the ascending cycle, the 2 worst cards that we've pegged are the fire and primal ones? So Sonny's like all these 2-cost cards with heavy influence, that make it so you don't really want to play this card to not give you influence. Well, yeah, but like you're not playing this in like a mono shadow deck. You're playing this in a mono fire deck or a Skycrag deck. And so I think in those decks, this card will be very good with Petition, especially like Skycrag, because Petition can be if you can activate Silex, you need to get Silex. You can get Silex. It's very slow, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do in an aggro deck. And like in Throne, in like a mono fire deck, it just makes Petition like so much better. I mean, obviously that's a really weird thing to say, but like like if you have to in Throne, if you have to, Petition is probably going to be this draw, make a 4/1 play, draw this card, make a 4/1. But like, the fact that you have this like minor flexibility of like, I'll get Fire Coin to, kill my opponent by playing 2 costs, deal 1, like the fact that there is that flexible option, I think is good. I don't think it's like super noteworthy. I think it will come up in like maybe like 2-3% of your games, but I do think it helps push the card over the top. I think that the fact that it's power, the fact that it's undepleted, if it was depleted, I think it would be garbage. But undepleted power, draws you a card, like you might say the same thing about like Seal of Devotion, right? Like, oh, you can't choose when you draw the card, but it's like, yes, the thing that makes this card the worst is like, if you have it like your opening hand, that's the part that really sucks about this card. But even then, it's still a power, right? It's gonna be kind of like, oh, I wish I could have drawn later, but I don't know. I think this card is busted, and I think that it will see lots of, well, not lots. I think you'll see heavy play in one specific archetype.
Yeah, I think it's going to see play too, but I also like, man, evaluating
It's going to be
cards
very
is so
frustrating to
hard.
play against. It's going to be very, very frustrating to play against
No,
because
not for me.
you will kill. Well, no, but yeah, okay, not for Sunny, but like Sunny will be playing. Sunny will be like, this card's terrible, then he'll like win the next ECQ
Well,
with it in, like,
no,
6 months.
See, if my opponents play this card, I'm just gonna be like, that card doesn't block. I'm attacking you anyway. Like, it doesn't matter.
Well, so the thing is, though, is that I mean, I think that's the wrong way to look at it because they're winning the race then because they got a free unit to attack you with.
A note about me, Stormblessed. I always win the race. Thank you very much.
I always Sunny was nominated for fastest runner back in track in high school. Because he always wins the
Fastest red
race.
deck in
Uh,
the format.
the West. But no, I mean, this card. I mean, if you're not playing the aggro deck like Sunny, even I think Sunny's evaluation is a little incorrect. But like, like you like, aha, I killed the Kazuo on turn one, so they couldn't attack. And then like top deck this on turn two, and then like play like, Champion of Fury and attacking for four. Now they have two 4/1s. And you're like, why?
You
Well, I guess
can't,
they
yeah,
can't
you
have a
can't
4/1
champion
with Champion of
Fury.
Fury. Well, a 3/1, fine. They can have a 3/1. Well, you could still have a 4/1. You can have Evangel. But I mean, so they attack you for three, and then next turn they have two 4/1s, and you're like, why, Direwolf? They got so much free value. This card's bullshit. It's so much RNG. But I think this card will be very good. Will win lots of games. I think it makes Petition. If you were to ask me, Stormblessed, like when Petition was released, do you think Petition will ever see play? And I'd be like, maybe they could put enough good power to make Petition play. Do you think it'll ever see play in aggro deck? I'd be like, no.
I still don't think that it's going to see play in aggro deck. I think this is just random value when you're playing aggro. I like on our cast with batteries, we talked about the axes of winning games, right? And aggro decks almost always want the axis of efficiency. That's the easiest way for an aggro deck to win. Petition works against that.
Okay, I'm gonna interrupt you, Sonny. I'm gonna interrupt you. Counter argument, Sonny. Yeti Cookmaster. This card is with Petition. If you count it as both Petition and not Petition options, with Petition already makes this card better than Yeti Cookmaster in aggro deck. I'm just gonna put it out there. You played 4 Yeti Cookmaster to an ECQ final winning deck. Petition is better than Yeti Cookmaster in the mono fire
Shoot,
deck. With
you
this
might
card.
be right. I hate it when you're right.
This card is busted. It's broken.
So you're saying that
Like,
all aggro decks should just play this instead of whatever their worst 2-drop is?
Probably. Well, at least they should. Well, this and Petition. I think the answer is probably. Well, it depends. I mean, if the aggro deck is playing like if you viewed Rakano as an aggro deck, obviously this card's not in Rakano, right? But if you're playing a mono fire aggro deck, this card probably should see play in your deck.
Maybe it really depends on how important the influence is for you, and decks that.
I mean, I think this effect is better than Seal of Devotion, right? You said you were talking about the axis of efficiency, right? This is a similar effect to Devotion, right? Possibly, if you can play both. But if you can't because of Jack, I think you play this one because they're both doing a thing where they're both trying to draw an extra card, get an extra card. But this is instead of just like drawing a card, this is playing a 4/1, which is just better in an aggro deck, right?
All right. This okay. I'm being convinced.
Yeti Cookmaster. That's all I gotta say.
Okay, yeah, but it really depends on the deck. But in the aggro decks that aren't going heavily on influence, yeah, I could see this being really, really good.
I will say that I also do like that this is a like. I deem it to be like completely broken, but I like that it's also a really powerful card that only fits into a very select subset of decks, right? It's not like Helio, where it just saw play in basically every primal deck under the sun. If you're playing heavy primal under any capacity, you probably play. Well, back when Helio cost 5, anyways. Now that cost 6 is a little bit different. But like like there are some cards that's like, oh, I'm playing a fire deck. Guess I'm playing Jack. Like I'm playing fire tokens. Guess I'm playing Jack. I'm playing fire. Guess I'm playing Jack. Whereas like this card is very specifically powerful in one deck, so I like that.
The deck that I can't wait to build in Eternal, there aren't enough cards for it yet. Well, maybe there are, but is the deck that just relies on its powers to win. Like the cumulative effect of playing powers is powerful enough for it to win. I think we're a long ways away from that, but hey, we're starting to get closer. Like Broken Contract and the emblems and Silexes to draw extra cards. Like if you just have convenient ways of or like good ways of playing extra powers on the turn, like with Talar's Sanctum, that seems like that could be a lot of fun.
Talir's Sanctum in like a 25 Silex deck in Throne. Oh
yeah.
My god, you're just blowing my mind. But I think that at some point it is possible that Petition will have to be nerfed.
Boy,
I don't think we're there yet, but like like we've seen like at the rate that they're releasing these powerful power, like we've seen Silexes, now we've seen Broken Contract. I wouldn't be surprised if someday Petition needed nerf because there's just so much powerful power to tutor up.
I mean, if you're looking at parallels from Magic, Sylvan Scrying has never been banned, and that's basically the same thing.
I think that power in Eternal is far better than power in Magic. Like style, I know that this is not a Magic podcast, but like you compare the original dual lands, the original alpha dual lands to Silexes. I think Silexes are better than the alpha dual lands.
I mean, do you know about the The Thespian Stage Dark Depths combo.
Okay, that's fair. Well, yes, but okay, yeah, that's fair. We don't. Okay, yes. Well, again, that's one. That is one deck, right? Where Silexes are played in every deck, and I think that we. That's a very weird combo though, because Dark Depths isn't really a land in Magic, right? It's a land, but like it doesn't produce power, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, but I mean,
but I think in
in
Eternal,
Modern, like both of those cards were. It's not like the random like Maze of Ith or something from the super old sets that
I guess Magic does have its powerful power, but I think I mean I guess also like Library of Alexandria, although Silexes do a decent impression of that, while also providing you influence and allowing you to actually use it for that turn. I guess if you also play a 25 Silex deck, you basically have a library every turn. But this is not a Magic podcast. This is an Eternal podcast. I do think that eventually, I think we will eventually reach the point that Power and Eternal is just like a lot better than power than land in Magic for the most part. I think we are approaching that point, especially like in Standard. Like we, Silexes are just way better than Temples.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, Silexes are pretty busted. But
and this card also is really good too. I mean,
I think that's more of a problem of Silexes than Petition. Like, if Silexes are still going to be legal, I think that they're going to have to take a knock.
Well, no, I think it's to me. I'm not saying that Petition should be like nerfed right now. I'm saying like the trend of we see Silexes, Vows to a lesser extent, emblems, and now this broken contract card. We are reaching a point where it looks like they're pushing power farther and farther, where Petition might need a nerf, in like a couple sets, right? If they keep pushing power along these axes, right?
Yeah, I'm still on I don't think Petition's the problem. I think the actual powers would be the problem.
Yeah, almost certainly it's the powers themselves, but there are some things where it's like, well, we can't print these cards like Broken Contract.
Yeah,
like,
well, I mean, you shouldn't print them anyway. Like, what do you have against poor old Petition? Petition did nothing wrong.
I mean, it is a tutor for 2.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a very fair card. Anyway, that's enough of her.
I know. Okay, I love Petition, and I hope they don't nerf it. I'm not advocating to nerf it. I don't advocate for things to be nerfed. I'm saying like there could be a point where it's like with like volatility, right? Where I'm like there could be a point where we have just this massive amount of powerful things to grab with volatility that can also like reduce their cost. That means that volatility is going to nerf, and I think that we could reach the point where there's just so much power into the Petition, and I don't think it's going to be broken contract, but we do a better Yeti Cookmaster now. So on that note, I think we're going to call the cast here.
Yeah, thanks everyone for watching, or sorry, listening. Well, if you're on YouTube, I guess you're watching. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope that this was informative. If you disagreed or agreed, let us know. I mean, we'll definitely come back and see how we're doing on this and see if that any of these cards need, like emergency nerf. Anyway, we'll be back next week. We'll know who the draft champion winner is. That's going to be really exciting. I'm looking forward to that tomorrow at time of recording. I should shut up and just say goodbye to everyone. So thanks everyone for listening. Until next time, we will see you in the friend zone.
Stay friendly, and remember, don't play Yeti Cookmaster.
The Friends of Eternal Discord is the best place on the internet to get better at Eternal. We have players of all skill and experience levels all happy to help each other out on basically any aspect of their Eternal gameplay. And making all this possible is our generous patrons over at patreon.com. If you'd like to support FEcast or Friends of Eternal, consider donating at patreon.com/Friends of Eternal. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, we'll see you in the Friend Zone.